Fresh off the heels of the movie, the Amazing Spider-Man video game plunges deeper into Peter Parker's life as the web crawler. A routine field trip into a secret lab at Oscorp uncovers a variety of genetic mutations. Just as Parker and Gwen are nearing the end of their tour, a slew of mutations crash the party and start attacking researchers. Parker takes this opportunity to escape the chaos and change into his Spider-Man costume, but his love interest, Gwen Stacy, suffers for it. It's time for Spider-Man to do whatever a spider can and save the woman he loves. The creatures have escaped from the lab and are taking their anger out on citizens. This releases a cross-genetic virus among the population, which is slowly turning everyone in New York into raging beasts. As if they weren't extremely hostile already, right? Oh. And it's starting to become a recurring theme with open world hero games. Infamous, Prototype, and even Spider-Man Web of Shadows shares this trend. It's become a major go-to for companies, and it rears its ugly head here in The Amazing Spider-Man as well. When following the main storyline, the game will follow a serious tone.
Who knows what this serum will do? If anyone should risk it, it should be me.
No!
It's mostly dramatic fluff that shows how urgent it is for Spider-Man to find a cure. The real meat and bones of the story is when Spider-Man is alone and chasing bad guys. His dry wit and cornball jokes match those of the comic books.
Sorry to disturb you, but I just moved in next door and I wanted to know if I could borrow a sample of your blood.
The most enjoyable time comes from taking on the side missions. Spider-Man seems to be actually having fun on random bosses, and he dials back the tears to 0.
You look like you're using that. Will allow me to turn the lights out.
This is the first Beenox developed Spider-Man title to feature sandbox gameplay. On that note, most people are probably wondering what the web swinging is like. The web swinging mechanic itself is actually pretty dull, as players simply hold down a button to keep Spidey swinging. The velocity control and sharp turn mechanics from Spider-Man 2 are still missing, but they have been replaced with a system that is inspired by the new movie. Web Rush offers rapid paced movement for Spider-Man to slingshot himself across the city. Players can turn in any direction and press the Web Rush button, and Spider-Man will head to the nearest point with cinematic flair. Of course, he won't always hit the target with his spider webs, but holding the button down will cause Spider-Man to go into slow motion. I'll call it web time. You know, bullet time. Spider-Man's not the only one that can make corny jokes. At this point, the player can take their time and choose the next path with precision. Web Rush is the complete replacement for normal web swinging. It's a ton of fun, but not as exciting as it could be. Still, with a little practice, Spider-Man can pull off some incredible web swinging feats. Web Rush can also be used in tandem with the combat in game. Players can lock onto enemies and dart towards them with a quick strike. Once they are in the thick of battle, players can attack enemies with a variety of punishing punches and kicks. Spider-Man will rely on his senses to avoid being taken out by his enemies. Spidey can counter incoming attacks, and he can evade multiple melee attacks from his opponents. This is essential to surviving, as Spider-Man can only take 3 or 4 hits before dying horribly. He can even jump into the shadows via a maneuver called Web Retreat. The wall crawler can dispose of his enemies with stealthy tactics. He can drop down from the ceiling and pull his foes into the sky, or sneak up behind them and pummel them into the floor. The only problem with the actual combat itself is that it occasionally goes into autopilot. Spider-Man will commit to a combo and become untouchable to other enemies while he completes his acrobatic moves. This can take some of the challenge out of combat, especially where the counterattacks are concerned. It's strange that the fighting mechanics are so grounded in comparison to other games in the series. There are times where Spider-Man will take to the sky, but it's usually to battle a boss or some fast-moving robot. Speaking of bosses, they are entirely too easy to defeat. The patterns are usually 2 or 3 moves to dodge, and then you pummel the boss until victory is achieved. The large-scale battles are similar, but the epic encounters make for a much more impressive affair. Even though the game is set in an open-world playground, the random events are more like scripted events. They are extremely similar to the ones found in Spider-Man 2, almost to a fault. Spider-Man will take civilians to the hospital, chase down speeding cars, and show off some impressive moves in front of a camera. Too bad the actual application of most of these missions leads to a dull and repetitive chore. There isn't a real sense of urgency due to the scripted nature of the events. But hey, at least you can swing around the city collecting 500 comic books. If you collect them all, you open a small collection of hand-picked Spider-Man comics to read. Graphically, the city of New York looks wonderful from up high. Spider-Man zips through the city with some slick animations worthy of the web slinger. Bounding from the top of a building and rocketing down into the city is an adrenaline rush. It's the impact of what the player sees when they are on the ground that breaks the mood. It's an ugly mess out on the streets. All of the citizens seem to share the same gene pool, and textures for buildings and characters are downright murky. Level placement is also in need of some fine-tuning. Players will encounter a variety of repeat areas throughout the game. Spider-Man will slip in and out of comparable sewer areas and jump in and out of Oscorp. Other than the city itself, Spidey doesn't seem to go to too many stimulating areas. It's only when an extremely large robot is busting through the city, or when the city itself is destroyed beyond belief. Spider-Man is the most impressive vocally than he's been in many games.
It's not the power you should be concerned about. It's the responsibility it gave me. You know, to beat the living crap out of criminals like you.
The character voice fits wonderfully with our neighborhood hero. It's a splendid thing, as he'll spend most of his time berating a bad guy instead of talking to other characters.
Ooh, is this a private fight, or can I join in?
The music in the game has a standard fair score. Nothing really stands out as amazing, and the orchestrated bits are forgotten rather quickly. In conclusion, Spider-Man is back in the city in an average way. The game is ugly and the combat is mostly the same as other games of the genre. However, if you're a true Spider-Man fan, you'll love seeing our web hero swinging his way across skyscrapers. The Amazing Spider-Man receives a C from Half-Ass Gaming. It isn't spectacular or amazing, but at least it's not the terrible Spider-Man.
One at a time should work. You first.